So what I'm going to be talking about today is one of these characters from mythology, and this is from Greco-Roman mythology, and this is the character Prometheus. And it's a very popular character, and I think a lot of people already understand the story. But we're going to go through it step by step and understand how Prometheus is one of these ideal or close to ideal examples from mythology that kind of give us an idea of what it means to be a bringer of light. The word Lucifer, it literally means bringer of light or light bringer. And we have this concept, the non-theistic Luciferians tend to think of Lucifer or the light bringer as an archetype rather than an individual character. It's more of a pattern or almost a formula. And if you have ever investigated the works of Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, he has this theory of the hero with 1,000 faces, and he describes what is kind of an archetypal pattern that he sees in a lot of these characters throughout mythology, ancient times to present, where this character will go through a certain journey, and he refers to that as the journey of the hero. And I thought, okay, so what would that mean on the left-hand path? What is the journey of the left-hand path hero? The journey of the light bringer, the archetype of Lucifer. What is that? What is that actual pattern? And the more I studied, the more I realized that actually this is what Joseph Campbell was talking about in the first place. The hero is the journey of the left-hand path hero. And he even has a lecture, I don't remember what the lecture is called, but in that lecture he actually explicitly says what his definition of right-hand path and left-hand path is. So the right-hand path, in his view, is the social norms, the status quo, the institutions of the culture and society that you were raised in. That's the right-hand path. Just going along with what you were taught and believe, and not really questioning it, just kind of being part of that comfortable, established path that exists. That is the right-hand path. And the left-hand path is actually somebody who goes outside of that, who becomes an outsider for some reason or another, goes on this journey and explores the darkness, the unknown, and conquers in some way, shape, or form, becomes victorious along this path, confronting fear, confronting the unknown, and eventually comes back to that community and enriches the community with that gained, whatever they've gained. Sometimes it's symbolic in the form of a treasure, other times it's knowledge or wisdom. Sometimes it's a whole new order that becomes established when he comes back. Sometimes they get punished when they come back for for bringing in this new information that's unwelcome. But generally, that's the kind of the arc. And as I've gone through this, I looked at Prometheus is one of these examples of it's a near ideal of the left-hand path or light bringer arc of the specific type of hero that we're talking about here. And so I wanted to go over some of the different stages or elements of the Prometheus myth and kind of share some of my insights with you on those various stages. So to begin with, Prometheus was the one who was said to have actually created the human species. Prometheus and his brother went around creating various different species and giving them their own unique individual properties and skills to survive in the world and find their niche. Prometheus gave humans the ability to stand upright like the gods did. And so already you have that idea that Prometheus has created us in a way that is very similar to what the gods, the ruling powers that be, you know. And so he created us out of clay and built us up, and you know, we breathe air and things like that, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can take this. It can be, you know, taken literally by people who are literalists, where they say, oh, well, this God created us, how humans got here, you know, but we like to take it more in a symbolic way, you know, and say, okay, well, what does this represent? And it could represent some sort of ancestral memory of how, you know, we evolved from one species to another and such like that, right? Like how the human species even came about, because there's definitely, we've seen in the fossil record that hominids, different types of hominids have walked the earth. And eventually we have the species of hominid that we are now. And so we can say that, you know, we're similar to the one that came before that we came out of. It could be some sort of ancestral memory that's mythologized that whole process. But that doesn't really give us anything to work with. Like, how does that apply in our lives? So we could take it to another level here. And I like to see this process is almost like as if we're recreating ourselves in our, you know, we don't change the way we look, really. You know, we're still the same as we were before, but we've changed. We've taken a new beginning. It's an initiation, you know, and for it to be about, you know, on the first stages of initiation on the occult path, we tend to focus. You have to look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you have to satisfy the most basic needs before you can even really consider going up to the next level of abstraction. So when we first start out on the path of initiation, we have to work with the elements, you know, the here and the now, the things, the daily things that we have to deal with, and get our lives in order, and take our own power back, and take responsibility for where we are in our lives and where we're going, and make those choices. And so I kind of see it as that initiation into the elements and to the level of survival. Now in the story, humans were very poorly equipped to survive. And so they ended up relying on the gods. Zeus, and you know, was the king of the gods, or, you know, Jupiter, if you look at the Roman names for the same gods of Olympia. And they had to rely on the gods to provide. So in a sense, that's almost like when we're growing up, you know, we don't know, we're not able to provide for ourselves, you know. And so there's a long period of time when humans are getting to the point where we're independent. When we do get to that level of independence, we have a lot more freedom over our lives. And this brings us to the next stage in the mythology of Prometheus, where Prometheus decides that we have a great potential and steals the fire of the gods and brings it to humanity and teaches them the use of fire. And this dramatically increases our abilities to have power over our own destinies. You know, this is a massive ability to actually choose what we're going to do with our lives, and in a very wide range of possibilities here. So this fire of the gods, it's kind of in the planetary realm. It's this forbidden knowledge that the gods didn't want us to know because they wanted us to be subservient to them. And Zeus doesn't like the fact that the fire got taught to humanity, because he liked us animalistic and needy. And so this, it's like the planetary realm, in a sense. If you look at the occult initiation, it goes from the elemental realm, we go to the next level. And this is the whole range of arts and sciences that we can explore in our lives. So these are the gods of Olympia are the same thing that we refer to as the planetary realm, you know, like Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, all of these, right? So that's the next stage in the whole thing. And what happens to Prometheus, the outsider, the Titan, you know, part of the old order, when he gives us that knowledge, there's a backlash. You know, it upsets the status quo. It upsets the established order, because this information empowers humans to be independent and do what they want without having to rely on the gods. And so what happens is there's a backlash. The established order has a backlash on Prometheus for this, and binds him to a rock or a mountain, and has an eagle come in and eat his liver every night, and it grows back. And so he's eternally in torture, and it keeps repeating over and over. And we're into these cycles, which leads us to the next stage. You know, the next stage is where he actually gets unbound from that rock. So before we move on to that, I think it's important to note that when we talk about something that upsets the established order, when we share knowledge or ideas that make people question the beliefs that are not questionable, that they're not allowed to question, you know, this upsets a lot of people, and there's a backlash. This is a thing that happens. They're put outside their comfort zone. It's called cognitive dissonance. So they're given information that conflicts with what they've based their whole lives upon, and they don't like it, and they push away, and oftentimes it'll even be a violent reaction, and they'll do whatever they can to avoid this cognitive dissonance, this sense of that this information that was forbidden because it challenges the previously established idea of things. So now we get into the next level where Prometheus actually becomes unbound. There were 3 conditions that Zeus or Jupiter put on Prometheus in order for him to actually escape these bonds. The ego must be defeated, the chains must be broken, and an immortal has to give up his life. So along comes Hercules, and he's on these 12 labors, which is very symbolic of the transit of the sun through the 12 signs of the zodiac. You know, and here we have cycles again. You know, the night and day where he's being tortured eternally, and then we have the yearly cycle of the sun moving through the 12 signs of the zodiac. So now we've gone from the elemental realm to the planetary realm, and now we've gone even further to the fixed stars, or the belt of the zodiac. And this is a standard progression that you see in occultism. And you see this in Dante's Inferno, you know, you see this in the Chaldean Ladder of Lights, you see this in the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. You know, it's a very universal progression. And so Hercules comes along, and he kills the eagle with a poisoned arrow, and he breaks the chains, freeing Prometheus. So he's able to kind of move around, do his thing, you know, and he has kind of gained a certain level of mastery. It's symbolic to me. I feel this is symbolic of gaining a certain level of mastery over his life, that like in our lives as initiates, gaining a certain level of mastery over your life, that backlash is something that you can deal with, and you can still move on and do whatever you like. You know how to work the system in a sense, and this comes through experience and knowledge and maturity. You know, where you're able to just say, you know what, I don't agree. This is why, and I'm going to move forward on that. I don't care that people are trying to make me feel afraid or making me feel isolated, or any type of imaginary punishment or anything like that they could place upon me. It won't stop me from accomplishing my will in the world. And that, I think, comes through experience and wisdom that comes through knowledge as you go through your life. So you've hit that next level in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And now he's still not completely free. He's free to do as he wishes. He's free to move around, do what he wants, but he hasn't had that third condition met. So elsewhere, meanwhile, Hercules is talking with his childhood instructor, Chiron, and he drops one of his arrows by accident, and it pierces the skin of the centaur, Chiron. And because this centaur is immortal, he's just suffering. And it's agony because he can't die, but he has been poisoned. And so ultimately what ends up happening is he gives up his immortality to Prometheus. Now, what does that mean? The centaur, I feel, kind of represents the body, the physical body, in a sense. Ultimately, you know, we don't have this physical vehicle forever. Ultimately, it starts to age and deteriorate and becomes less effective for accomplishing our will in the world. So what do we have to do? We have to take it to the next level. And we have to find new physical vehicles if we want to maintain our influence in the world. There's two ways of doing this. You can establish what I like to call artifacts. These are physical things in the world that you've created that will continue on after the physical body stops working, that will continue to influence people in the world. So you could write a book, you could plant a tree, you could have a child, you know. You could make a piece of art, you know, like it could be a painting, it could be a song that's recorded. These artifacts exist in the world and become a physical vehicle for a part of your will that's out there in the world influencing. We all know that there are certain artists that not only did they continue to influence people long after they died, their influence continued to grow because they have these physical vehicles out there. They've copied parts of themselves onto these artifacts, or they've manufactured, that they've introduced into the world. They're engines of change that imprint their will upon the world, in a sense. Now, there's another way of doing this too, and that is through other people. So copying parts of yourselves onto others. And you do that through interacting with other people. By even just having these group discussions. We're kind of copying parts of each other onto each other, you know? And now the difference is that when you have these physical artifacts, say a book, it's a crystallized part of your philosophy and will. It's static, it stays the same. But when you copy an idea onto another person, they take it and run with it. It mutates, it grows, it continues to change. So I think it's kind of important, if that is part of our goal to achieve immortality, that we have both. that we have these crystallized forms, and we also have these living, mutating forms of ourselves that are out there in the world, inhabiting physical vehicles. And that could be other people, that could be books, but there are two different ways of going about it. And it allows, having that interaction with others, allows those ideas to grow and change and mutate into new things. And we don't want it to be static. We like change. You know, anytime that it stays solid, and unchanging, it's kind of dead in a sense. But with these artifacts, they can inspire other people and copy themselves onto those people, and then it can grow and change and mutate again. You know, so it kind of preserves certain ideas in a crystallized form, and then it also allows it to go out there in the world and grow and change. So then the final stage, that stage, in a sense, when he becomes immortal, it's through, it happens as the physical vehicle starts to die, right? And it has to go, that immortality is transferred to others, right? We give our immortality to other people, and they run with it. And finally, ultimately, our physical body stops working. In a sense, we transcend the physical body, but we become a concept. We become an idea. You know, we become the impact that we've made in the world. And that continues, and it continues through these various different vehicles, and it can spread, and it can change as it goes. And in a sense, Prometheus kind of reinstitutes a new generation of titans in the world by giving this knowledge to the humans. The humans now become kind of the new titans in the world. And then they were just pure potential before, but now that they have this empowering knowledge, they become as gods walking upon the earth. And that's basically the whole cycle of Prometheus. And he was considered a hero, a cultural hero. He wasn't considered a bad guy or a devil. We see other examples of the Luciferian archetype, such as the serpent in Eden. But that was considered a cultural devil, right? That was considered something bad. But essentially a lot of the same elements are there. So now the only thing that I think would make the Prometheus concept even more ideal is if it was another human, you know, our ancestors, rather than this external god that gifted humanity with this knowledge. I think it would be more empowering to think of it, if I could change one thing, it would be our ancestors figuring things out and sharing it along the way, and as we go, breaking down these established orders to create something better, something newer, something different. And as it changes and grows, it'll continue. And there'll always be these people that challenge the status quo. And these are the light bringers. These are the people that are able to go out and conquer and come back and bring that information that they shared, that they got from the unknown, to spur us forward. And that's my talk. So we don't have too long, but we could take a couple of questions or points of discussion that people want to discuss the ideas.
Yeah, I was just curious. Like in the myth, it's that someone, like another god, sacrificed their immortality for him. And how do you think that parallels to our experience? Because it seems like the Luciferian path is more about setting out to achieve that yourself versus looking for a deity to sacrifice it to.
Well, I think that we do have to pass the torch. You know, we do what we can while we're here, but then others have to take that and run with it. You know, we don't have literal physical immortality. You know, our immortality comes through passing that torch. You know.
So it's sort of, I guess, even an initiation, right? It's having that pass from people that walk the path before you.
Yeah, well, like some people said that we, stand on the shoulder of giants, or titans, maybe. Stand on the shoulder of titans, perhaps. But that means others that had amazing ideas that you then take and make your own, and it inspires you to do something else, to take it further or apply it in a different way. Like I said, there's ways that we can create crystallized forms of our own self through artifacts, but really they're only useful if people take them and mutate them and go forward. Because there's always that cycle of rebellion, and a new order is established, and then somebody rebels against that with a new information, and then it goes forward and forward, revolution after revolution.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Anybody else have anything that they wanted to discuss?
Maybe the idea that the claim that was brought from this deity perspective, maybe that's a reference to a personal divine spark. Where does inspiration truly come from within us? From where does it come from? It's mysterious. And those chains and that bondage is okay. So now inspiration has risen, has come forward. What does one now do with that? That is the personal challenge moving forward.
Yeah, for sure.
That's encompassed in that.
Well, some people say there's nothing new under the sun, right? But it's different. It's what you do with it that's new. It's how you choose to take it and run with it. And yeah, that we do have that own internal inspiration. We do have that striving to do something great, to share the things about ourselves that are unique and personal, and to actually enrich the world through that. Like people have said, if we were all the same, how boring would that be? If we each are able to share that unique part of ourselves, then we have the grand diversity of the human species and beyond.
It seemed like the fire was the idea of knowledge, and fire is one example of knowledge, and that the powerful beings are threatened by the idea of the development of knowledge to challenge. I don't know if it's disturbing fans here, but the idea of the wild was that they kept the technology and knowledge low to keep control, and the Earth escaped when they felt they were a big threat. And I think we're dealing with that now with our own creation, which is artificial intelligence and Cylons. So it's like we could be facing the very same thing. What will our decision be?
Yeah, that's true.
And also, if you look at Elvis Presley and the Beatles, you see the same rebellion. And the music came and the hip shaking thing was the devil's thing.
Yeah, the hip shaking. People went wild, nuts. People were upset.
Like every time something's made, there's a problem. And then it becomes normal, and then something else becomes the essential history. So music is a great example, and you see all that happen.
Yeah, so now Luciferians, say 200 years from now, aren't going to be rebelling against the same things that we're, hopefully, aren't going to be rebelling against the same things that we're rebelling against, because they will have achieved a certain level of progress. There'll be new sacred cows, and that will be saying, hey, what about this idea? And people are going to be freaked out by those ideas that they come up with. And there'll be different ideas that we come up with now. Another example is Galileo and Copernicus, are real people that had ideas that challenged the status quo. The ideas that The Earth revolved around the sun, for example, that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. It was a very dangerous idea. And to even come out with that idea, there was a backlash against that. And it was a very dangerous thing for him to do. But he got through it. And now he's seen as a hero, a cultural hero in a sense, that he was able to stand up against the delusions and crystallized thought that had become established, and was able to change that. And we were able to take that idea and run with it. And now we have these, different ways of looking at the world. So the idea, I think, is for us to each do that in our own way, to challenge these sacred cows, to come up with a new idea, or to figure out truths that are this dangerous knowledge, this forbidden knowledge, and to share it. I think that's part of being a Luciferian, as to be a bringer of light, to share this knowledge to help others empower themselves. We don't go out and knock on doors and say, "Hey, I got this information you might want." We make it available to those who seek it. Because if they're not seeking it out, then they're not going to want it anyways. They're going to reject it. They're going to be the ones that are, giving the backlash. But there are always going to be people that do have the courage to say that the emperor has no clothes. That they are going to say, "Hey, I think that the earth revolves around the sun," things like that. And, we have to figure out in our own way how to do that.
I think that there's something inherently bad about a status quo. Is that in 200 years, hopefully, I'm not with you on it, but maybe it'll be different sacred cows being taught. But is it inherent in Luciferianism that you will always go against the status quo? Is it also the status quo that everybody can jive with?
That's a great question, because I think that if we challenge an idea and find it lacking, then we want to destroy it. But if we challenge an idea and find that it actually is very useful, there's no problem with accepting it, even if it's part of the status quo, even if it's part of the establishment. If it's useful and if it makes sense, then there's no sense in destroying it or trying to replace it with something else. We accept the truths as they appear as best we can, even if it's part of the status quo. So no, there's nothing inherently evil about the status quo. It's just that a lot of times things get stuck in there.
I guess the perfect status quo is the status quo that is the status.
Yeah.
Just to build up on that, it seems that really it's not so much about rebellion for the sake of rebellion, just because things seem static and we should just change things. More that critical analysis of dogmatic assumptions that create a sort of a resistance towards plasticity or change, or a difficulty to even allow someone to adapt their own ideas. I think that, ideally we would all just be continuously evaluating our ideas as we mature as people, and then, discard what's no longer useful, it's not serving us to the best that it can be.
Exactly.
And if something is really helpful, and it is a genuine insight that is propelling us to be better and better, then there's no need to just kind of for the sake of rebellion, to just constantly change it. It's more that you should always be open to evaluate things, not identifying so deeply with your preconceptions, always being willing to change them as you grow as a person.
Exactly. We're not rebels without a cause. we feel like if you pick something to rebel against, it should be something worthy of rebellion. Right. Not something that's actually good and useful and helpful.
I think that the point here too is the state of being dynamic, and the status quo implies being static.
Yeah. Well, we are out of time, so I'd like to thank everybody who showed up and participated in the discussions. even just showed up and just to be here and to listen and see what it's all about. And we're gonna have this. We like to try and do this every other Saturday. Sometimes we fall short, but we're making efforts to try and do this every other Saturday. And ideally, we do it in this location for now until we get a more permanent building that we could have 24 hours, 7 days a week established that we'd like to do. And we would do that with cooperation from other groups, so that we could have kind of a center for esoteric learning, in a sense, where various different schools can meet and share and learn from one another and have a greater community. And we like to try and help facilitate that. But until then, we've got this space that has been working out really well for us. So keep up to date on we have a meetup group, and also the events are posted on Facebook on the page that we have for our branch, the Greater Church of Lucifer in Toronto, Canada, and also on the Luciferian Research Society, which is at luciferianresearch.org. The events are posted there as well on the event calendar there. Everybody is welcome to go to a local restaurant down the street, and I'll let you know what it is after we shut this off and start packing up. But everybody's welcome to come and just have casual, share each other's company, and have some beers if we want, or whatever. So again, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up. If you'd like to help support the expenses that we incur in renting the space and stuff, you can approach me or Sean and give a donation if you'd like to help pay for the cost, but that's not necessary. It's a free event, and you can contribute if you'd like. But yeah, thanks again for everybody coming.
Thank you.